Robert, you want to introduce us? I think we're streaming live here.
Just getting us to look beautiful, John. Just getting us to look beautiful. Track and field fans, I hope you're ready for the Olympics. What a way to get ready for the Olympics. The final Diamond League meet before Paris Olympics is in the books. I think the official name is the London Athletics meeting, John. Is that correct?
London Athletics meet.
London Athletics meet, and it did not disappoint. Keely Hodginson, national record world lead. Not only that, she has now run faster than Mo ever has in her life. 154. Matthew Hudson-Smith is now the world leader in the men's 400. The first Brit under 44. Is he your Olympic favorite? Noah Lyles, the man that I said would never win an Olympic gold medal, has run a personal best of 981 and taken home the men's 100 meters. Will he pull off the double in Paris? The men's mile was a disgrace. Too many men started. There was yet another fall. Niels Laros fell 2 weeks, the second week in a row, but this time he got up and nearly won the race. He didn't win it, but he was my big winner. I think Ollie Hoare won it, but that was irrelevant to me. And I've got to hand it to him. I don't even know this young man's name, but I've never seen a performance this bad as in the men's 4x1 when the British anchor took off, and he gave a classic textbook example of how not to run a relay. John, do we know his name? Can we give him a shout out?
Reese Prescott. They mentioned it about 4 times on the broadcast if you were watching it. I'm kind of questioning whether you watched the broadcast given how openly he was criticized on there.
John, I'm often pausing the broadcast. I'm watching the broadcast using my VPN. If you need the VPN I have, go to letsrun.com/VPN. Get the NordVPN, and I can pause it, get ready for the show, get the graphics ready, get my hair ready, get the makeup girl in here. I'm ready to go. I'm excited. Honestly, when I got up early this morning, was heading to the gym, I was like, this meet's kind of lame, right? Is it going to be exciting at all? Boy, was I wrong. I thought this was a great meet. Femke Bol, 51:30. All of that and more. This is a special live edition of our bonus podcast. We have a podcast every Monday or Tuesday. Then we normally have a bonus podcast for our Supporters Club members. So if you want to catch this as a podcast and not have to watch it live, go to letsrun.com/subscribe, letsrun.com/subscribe. And I said there's never a better time to subscribe than now, because after you subscribe, when you get your free t-shirt on the yearly plan, put in who you think is going to win the Olympic 1,500 meter title, men's title. You can put in Kerr, you can put in Ingebrigtsen. If you're correct, your first year will be on us. So sign up today, letsrun.com/subscribe. By the way, I think I'm going to start deleting these. I've been letting these live broadcasts stay up on YouTube. One guy begged me. He's like, well, I often get in like 20 minutes late, so I want to rewind it and watch the start. 3 p.m., this thing's being nuked off the internet. If you haven't watched by then, you need to pay. All right, guys. Robert, I'm in a great mood today. I'm in a great mood, John.
You went to the gym. You got those endorphins flowing. I love to hear that. Robert, waking up early. I mean, this meet started at 9 a.m. on the East Coast, which means you must have been up by like 7 or something. You get the gym session in. I'm impressed, Robert. Maybe the sub 3-hour marathon is back on.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's not just that, John. What inspired me to get up, I wanted to save this for the regular podcast, but Weldon offered cash rewards if anyone recognized you while you're on vacation. Nobody took us up on it. Last night, gentleman was accosted by 3 fans in the supermarket. But we'll save that till Tuesday.
Oh, okay. I was like, maybe Robert's just happy to see me. I'm back from vacation. No, he's happy because his ego was stroked last night. You also didn't mention Grant Fisher in the 3K, Robert. He gets beat by Dominic Labalu. Like, going into this meet, that was one of the events I was most interested to see, because I'm just thinking to myself, look, Grant Fisher needs to win this race. If he's going to medal in Paris, this is a race he needs to win, and he didn't win it. And I come away, that's my thing going in. I come away from it looking at it, I'm like, all right, maybe he's still got a shot, but the winning time was 7:27. You would think this is a fast race. He had the lead at the bell. He closed in 55.2. This is the kind of race, Grant Fisher, you would set it up for him, right? A fast race where you can still kick a bit off of it. He didn't quite do enough. He lost to the guy who got the bronze medal in the 5K at Euros, Dominic Labalu. So if I'm a Grant Fisher, as the official Grant Fisher bad news, good news prognosticator, Robert, was this good news or bad news for Grant Fisher?
terrible news. That may be a reverse jinx. When he medals, people can take this to the bank. But no, when the field came out, I thought these are B teamers, and that's not the right word. But these are not the guys you're expecting to medal. Actually, when you said Labalo medaled, I'm like, what? He medaled at Worlds? No, he's the bronze medalist at Euros. These are the guys like you're going to have your Chepta guys, your Boregas, your Kaplimos, you know, the heavy hitters, the Kajelchas. Well, the Kajelcha's not in the 5,000. And I was like, he's got to beat everybody else. And there's going to be some heavy hitters at him. If he wants to medal, he needs to take down a field like this. And, you know, in LA, when the big heavy hitters were there, people said, oh, he kicked too late. I just think he gets dropped. Today, our intern was saying in the Google, like, oh, he kicked early. No, he didn't kick too early. This was the classic Mo Ferris plan. Take the lead before the bell and don't let anyone pass you. And I thought even with 100 meters to go, it might work. But the last 50, it wasn't close. And Labalo beat him convincingly. And, you know, I don't know where you would expect sort of, I mean, Labalo has run 12:50 this year. He is the 7th fastest 5,000 meter man in the world. But I think at this point, I think Fisher is a better 10K runner than he is 5,000 meter runner, but I think he's better medal chance might be coming the 5,000 because you're not going to have Kajelcha in there. You may have a satisfied, you know, like I don't think Borrega is going to be in there either, but you may not have like Chepta guy coming back from the 10. Kaplimo may not come back, you know, etc. So. But this was kind of a disappointing race for me. I mean, I was like, okay, I thought like, I didn't think he was going to win it. But then with like 100 meters to go, I'm like, well, maybe he still could. And then he loses. And it's like, you judge everything by the last 100 meters, but that's just the way it works, right?
Right. Weldon, how do you see this one?
Freakier than me. This is sort of embarrassing, guys. I don't think you guys have mentioned the performance of the meet. Nikisha Price, 48.57. Has that been mentioned?
No, it is not.
The NCAA champions, I mean, the NCAA girls in the U.S. sort of fell apart, right? Well, she's from Jamaica. My God. I mean, that was amazing. Gabby, we also may have seen the 100 and 200 meter champions in both the men's and women's at this meet. Gabby Thomas won the 200, but Julian Alfred, 21.86. She could win them both, man, at the Olympics, I would say.
But let's stick to one thing at a time.
Into 0.9 headwind, but
we can go event
of course,
by event.
This is an amazing track meet. My takeaway is this was an amazing track meet. This was another short track. Clearly, the track in Eugene is short. This track is short. Stanford is short. What does that show you guys? It shows you when athletes have a reason to run fast and they're peaking for something, they're ready to go, man. Like the Olympics are 2 weeks away. Everybody, especially if you're in the 100, I mean, you got to be ready to go to the 100, 200. They're in peak form, and it showed today. Across the board, athletes were just killing it out of the water. It's like one time. Michael Johnson, you want to see what you need to put on a track meet like that. 50,000 stands, one day, amazing effing track meet. That was fabulous, just across the board. And all this stuff happens, yet we're talking about Grant Fisher getting blown out of the water in a 3K. Come on, guys. But
this is Let'sRun.com, Weldon. Hello. People care about Grant Fisher. Like, obviously, how many people listening to this care about Nikisha Price versus Grant Fisher? Nikisha Price undeniably had a better performance, but people are tuning in to hear the takes on Grant Fisher. You haven't offered one yet. So how do you see this?
It's Olympic season, John. We're switching to Olympic mode. People want to see the best of the best, and we saw that today. Grant Fisher, he's like Nico Lung last year. He's like trying hard to kick or trying. It's like putting on effort. It's just like not there. And when there's blood in the water at the end of the race, they just kick by him. Like if they're close to him, they just kick by him. He doesn't have that last gear. So I think his best chance for a medal is probably some extended kick sneaking a third place. Like I'm not going to 100% rule it out. Kicking's different. He should, if he's trying to lead it and hold everybody off, his kick isn't there. If Labalo can just hang on him and blow by him like that, like he's got a lot of trouble. So with other guys in front of him, he's trying to hang with them. Can he, like sneak a medal? Possibly, but that was a long stretch to begin with, right? Like
Well,
Grant Fisher
Well,
this year has been on the outside looking in for the medals, or his whole career, obviously.
I don't think it's a long shot. I think he's in almost an identical situation to where he was in 2022, where he got fourth in the 10K and almost medaled in the 5K, but had that stumble entering the home straight. Obviously, he didn't run at Worlds last year, but he was very good at the end of the season. He's basically in the same spot. He's one of the best guys in the world. He doesn't have one of the best kicks, but there are going to be some. He's been pretty consistent in these championship finals. The 5K final in the Olympics, he was kind of, his calf had cramped up or whatever in between the rounds. So he wasn't 100% for that. But in the 10K, he was very close to medaling twice, and he's close to medaling the 5K. He's going to be in the medal mix. I think it's a less than 50% shot, but I think he has a decent shot, especially if a couple other guys are off their game.
all right. We all know it would not be an official podcast if I, the only one with professional broadcast experience, did not reveal my shallow ego and criticize the broadcasters. It was Tim Hutchings and who, John, on the international feed here?
Chris Dennis.
And I liked them. I loved him. I've always thought they were like the best. Now I'm wondering, do I just think that they're really good because they have an accent and they get excited? Like sometimes they just seem to make stuff up. Like I thought, oh, they must know everything. Like
who cares?
They said,
who cares?
They said that Grant Fisher's known for a big kick. I'm like, what planet are you on? And then the women's 200, they're like, Gabby Thomas gets off to a good start. Gabby Thomas got off to one of the world's worst starts I've ever seen in a race and still won it. It was an amazing race, but
Robert, I noticed that too. I'm going to stand up for them. Usually Tim and Chris are brilliant, but I saw the Gabby Thomas thing. I'm like, what the hell kind of race are they watching here? Like, Gabby Thomas had a terrible start and somehow won that race. The other thing that they screwed up, but I'm blaming this on the meet organizers, is the 4x1. They were like, and the Netherlands has a big lead. And then suddenly they hand off to the anchor leg and it's the UK way out in front. I'm like, how the hell did that happen? Because I'm watching this. It's not their fault. It's because Amy Hunt, who is the third leg for the British team, is wearing an orange top and blue bottoms, which is basically the same kit as the Netherlands. So the reason why it was so confusing is because the people weren't wearing the same stuff on the team. So that one I'm giving them a pass for. The Gabby Thomas thing, that was pretty inexcusable.
Wait, the Netherlands really didn't win that race? Till right now.
No, Daryl Nader got the handoff and she was wearing like her Adidas kit and she had a huge lead. No, the Netherlands got pasted.
Because I thought the British team was second or something. I was really confused, and I was that part of the meet. I was watching my kids and just sort of until now, I literally thought the Netherlands had won the 4x1.
Okay, we've talked about the men's 3,000 meters. Let's talk about the other distance events, and then we can catch the big thing since we are primarily known as a distance website. The big news, obviously overall in this meet, distance-wise, has to be Keely Hodginson in the women's 800 meters was absolutely amazing. Shatters her own British record. She runs, it was like her British record was like 155.19. Am I making that up, John? Anyways, she runs, just destroys that. 154.61. Jimmy Reiki, 155.61 in second. Georgia Bell, 156.28. Great running by the Brits, 1, 2, 3. I mean, there were some crazy runs behind them. Like you said it best, John. Former world champ Halima Nakayu ran a personal best of 157.26. She was only 6th. Allie Wilson, big PB, 157.5. She's only 7. Laura Muir was actually in this race. I didn't really realize that until now. 157.6. So just super fast. But to me, what was the most impressive thing about this is not only was it a national record of 154 by Keely, but she didn't have any help by the Rabbit. The Rabbit went out super hard. She was 10 to 15 meters ahead. There was no wind drafting off of this. This was a 154.6 by herself. So she can, to me, like, yes, she can replicate this at the Olympics. You know, I think it would be a little bit foolish to try to quite go that fast because if you go out too fast, you can tie up. But I think she should be extremely confident that she can front run the gold medal. If she wants to stay out of trouble, just go to the front and know who's going to come with you, because we're not going to worry about, what's going to happen when the Rabbits go away, because the Rabbit was not breaking the wind for her today. Amazing run. And when, we're talking about, she got a huge break when Athing Mo didn't make the team. In case you missed it, the final Puma American Track League meet of the year was last night in Gainesville, Florida. I think Mo was there, and she wasn't good. She was fine for 200 meters. She went out in 57, and tied up in the last 100, ran too flat. But I was kind of surprised. Just one thing about the American track thing. Why did Mo want to go out in 56? They said the rabbit's going to go out in 56. I'm like, what indication does she have, like, that she's in that type of shape? Like, it just seemed crazy to me. If you go out in 56, to me, you're trying to run 154. And I'm like, on what planet would we think that, okay, at a minimum, the rabbit's 56, you're 57, so you're trying to run 155, 156? Like, on what planet would we think she's in that type of shape? And she clearly wasn't. So everyone's, thank God we didn't listen to her agent who said we needed to put on our time. I'm thinking about writing an article. Walden's like, don't be negative. Probably too snarky, might piss off her camp. I don't care. It's like, thank God we didn't listen to Thing Mo's agent and put her on the Olympic team, because she doesn't deserve to be on the Olympic team.
Her agent was not asking for her to be placed on the team. Her agent wanted the race rerun, just like you have been.
Oh.
Your bucket
okay, then
list
I apologize to her agent.
dream.
He's a great man, and I'd like to see the re-race.
Yeah, no, Thing Mo, I mean, what indication? Well, she did run 158 after about, 2 weeks of workouts, 1 week of workouts going into the trials. So you would have thought maybe if she was healthy for the next month, she might have improved. That's possible. I think it's a little ambitious, but I wasn't totally stunned. I was stunned that she was only fifth. That was pretty crazy to see a Thing Mo get fifth in an 800-meter race. When's the last time that happened? But anyway, back to Keely. Clearly, she's the favorite for gold in Paris. And what's impressive to me isn't just the time she ran, isn't just that she had essentially no pacer in this race. It's that she showed between this and Eugene, she can win any kind of race. The pre-classic, remember, she didn't get caught up with Mary Moraa or anyone else going out hard. She sat back, but then she ran down and still won impressively in 155. That's a weakness we saw of her last year. And, in previous years, Commonwealth Games too, she hasn't quite known how to handle Mary Moraa, because Moraa will just do these crazy things. She'll throw a wrench in the plans. That's why I think Keely going into the Olympics, she's probably going to have two plans. She's like, hey, I can take it and force a fast pace. Or if Moraa does something nuts, I'll sit back. I won't get caught up in that. And then I'll make my move, and she'll have confidence that she can run her down. So I think she's in a perfect spot. She ran faster today than a Thing Mo ever has in her life. Like, even if we had a healthy Thing Mo, Keely might still be the favorite going into this race with how good she's been this year. I've been very impressed. I think Moraa can still give her a good run for the gold, because Moraa ran 155, 156 at Worlds last year, and not running a really tactically sound race. But Keely's your favorite.
It's interesting to me because Moraa, despite being the reigning world champion, is somewhat of a wild card for me, in the sense of I think she's a massive talent. This is the only human being I've ever seen go from first to last to first in professional 800. She did that a few years ago. But she's only run 5 800s this year. Last year, this is counting rounds and everything. And, the last two were second at pre and second at the Kenyan trials. But you've pointed out, John, it looks like a lot of times these Kenyans don't really care about winning the Kenyan trials. She was trying to help her sister out. So last year heading into Worlds, she had run 11 800s. So, we just don't really know what type of form. Has she been injured? Why hasn't she been running a lot? Or is she just saving it for Paris? But no.
Well, she's also been running a lot of 400s as well, Robert. And some of them she's run 50.5 twice. So I think that's part of it. It's not that she hasn't been racing. It's she's done 400s and 800s.
And actually, I know you're not a fan of the event, the mixed relay, John. I just read that the Kenyan team took the last spot into the Olympics in the mixed gender relay because Mary Moraa said, hey, we need to run this at the Kenyan trials. So she ran the mixed gender 4x4. But the way the schedule's set up, the mixed gender 4x4 first round is like right before or after the women's first round of the 800. So she won't run that. If they make the final, it's possible she could run the final. By the way, if you're watching live, get out your camera, take a picture of the screen, join the supporters club today. letsrun.com/subscribe.
We have a QR code now? Wow. We're entering the 21st century. Whoa, I'm impressed.
Well, even though on Saturday everybody's watching this on their phones, but John, when you go on vacation, shit happens around here. I don't think this one works any day. We'll put it up there. This is from last week. You could have gotten the Nike Zoom X Dragonfly for $80. I think it's sold out. So many people bought it. But just in case, check it out. Go to letsrun.com/shoes. But to go to the straight link, you got to use this one to see if it still works. Actually, I'm going to do it, John.
Okay.
See if it's still sold out. But okay,
it's kind of interesting.
Real quickly before we forget about the Olympics, John. I think we're in a. I started texting John or talking to John. I was like, "What's the world record? Are we in that territory? Is that still crazy to talk?"
The 800-meter world record, one that is universally regarded as one of the most suspect records in the book that stood for more than 40 years, 153.28. No, we're not close yet. That's still 1.3 seconds away. Now, I am wondering, like, if let's say you put Keely Hodginson in a race, she has a male pacer breaking the wind and just dragging her to 153. I'd be interested to see what this version could do. I think she comes pretty close based on the form she showed today, but in a race without a female pacer, without a male pacer, I still think we're pretty far away.
I'm just not sure that she's fast enough to set the world record. I'm kind of amazed she's as good as she is in the 800. John Kellogg just came into the office. I should ask him this. But if you look at some, like the world record in the women's 800 was run by somebody who had like a 47-second 400-meter PB. Keely's running 51 seconds. Like, it's pretty impressive to me that she can run 154. I should ask. We actually had a bunch of 153, 154 guys at Cornell. They were, I guess, 51. Yeah, that's about right. So I'm actually, maybe I should be more surprised that a 47-second 400 runner can't run faster than 153. So maybe I shouldn't, but it's just like something doesn't add up. It's always a weird combination to me of 400 and 800 speed. You know what I'm saying? Like, and how it sort of meets in the middle in the 800.
Well, yeah, think about a Thing Mo. A Thing Mo is a 403 1500 runner. She was second at USA's last year, and she's run 49.5 in the 200, so more than 2 seconds faster than Keely. It's pretty close when they race in the 800. So you would think with those two things, she should be way better. But yeah, I don't know.
Don't be surprised if this is the fastest you ever see her run. By the way, I looked it up on my app. I mean, can we praise the Brits? They got like 50 or 60,000 fans. Like, John, I meant to text you, like, get me a screenshot of the stands when they showed them, like, actually, like, every seat in a row is filled. In Eugene, it's like 7 seats in a row, 8 seats in a row. That's why I didn't believe any of the Eugene tennis figures. And also, I didn't know there was allowed to be 75 degrees in London. So it was good temperatures, an amazing crowd, and whatever. Let's move to the men's mile. That was the one negative. I just praised the organizers and London fans for going out and supporting. We probably had more in one night in London than we did the entire final weekend of the U.S. Olympic trials. But the one disgrace to me was the men's 800. There were 17, the men's mile. There were 17 people lined up at the start line. I think one of them was a pacer. And when I heard that there was like 17 guys a few days ago, I'm like, this is absurd. They keep pushing the limits on these 1500s, putting 16, 17 guys, thinking some guys are going to run slow. I'm like, no, you really should. 15's enough. But for a mile, it's different than a 1500. A mile is much more dangerous and much more tricky because 9 meters into the race, you're taking a turn and you don't want to run extra distance. And whatever. So when I heard there was 17, I was like, that's crazy. I'm like, at least they'll be smart enough to do it on a 1-turn stagger where, 10 guys start on the inside, 7 are moved to the outside, and they run the first turn in lane 5, and then they come in, kind of like you do in an 800. No, they don't do that. They put all 17 on the start line. And then what happens? Surprise, surprise, there's a fall. And it's amazing who it took out. It took out like the 2 Brits that everybody in the British crowd wanted to see, and Neil Gorley and George Mills. And then it took out the one guy in this race that I was really going to focus on, Niels Laros, the teenage wonder kid, the kid that many suspect to be the next Jakob Ingebrigtsen. That's a big hype, but he's much faster than Jakob was and approaching similar times at similar ages. And this is a guy, go back and watch the World Championship final last year. He was running for gold at age 17? Like, he
18.
was up at 18 last year. Now he's 19. And I was just okay. We haven't seen him run. He was hurt earlier in the season. He just broke the world under 20 1,000 meter record, but he fell in Monaco. So I'm like, okay, is there anyone that could possibly win gold that I'm not talking about? I've got, Ingebrigtsen, Kerr as the big taking up most of the percentages here. Slight chance for Nagus or Hawker. Can anyone else win gold? And I'm just thinking, Laros. But then I hear the fall, and for some reason they don't call it back. They fell in the first 50 meters. Like, why don't you can see here? Weldon's got some screenshots. Wow, who went down first?
Laros went down first, or I guess him and Gorley are tumbling, and then George Mills got tripped on Gorley. So,
but kudos to Laros. He fell last time and he got right up. But he in case you don't know what happens, like he's running in the back, and I guess his chip must have fallen off or something, because the announcers are like, he's not in the race. He's not showing up in the splits. I'm like, he sure looks like he's still in the race to me. And he was running kind of in the middle to the back of the field, and then he kicked pretty well and run 349 high, whereas the winning time was by Hoare was 349 low. But that fall had to cost him several seconds. So I was super impressed by this. So congrats to Niels Laros and thumbs down to the Brits. What is the starter doing? Like, shouldn't you be super aware? Like, okay, there's too many people in this field to begin with. If somebody falls, we got to bring it back.
Yes, you should be aware of that. But some people are pointing out in the comments, under like international World Athletics rules, I'm not sure if I need to revise them because I haven't looked at them recently. They're saying they're not sure there's a provision to call back the race. Like calling back the race is something that we see in US races more frequently. We don't really see it that much on the international scene. And okay, then if that's the case, they need to fix the rule, because if you can't call back a mile like this for a full within literally 5 seconds of the start of the race, the rule's dumb. It needs to be fixed, because this is a joke. We got 60,000 Brits showing up to watch their UK champion Neil Gorley, George Mills, another guy who's going to be an Olympian this year. Their race is over within 5 seconds because the organizers tried to cram an extra 3 guys in the start line and didn't use a double barrel. They get screwed over, and this is their final tune-up before the Olympics. That shouldn't be happening. So it's just common sense when you see something like this that's affecting even one athlete, but certainly 3 athletes out of 15 races. You need to fire the gun, call them back. It's just common sense. And if it's not a part of the rule book, it needs to be added pronto.
One other aspect. So Ali Hoare went at 349.03, just ahead of Nordas 349.06, McCall 349.21. I mean, maybe those guys could battle for. Laros was 349.45, and McSwain 349.59. But maybe those guys could battle it out for a bronze. I don't think that these people. If there's a number of people that could sneak a bronze if they get a break in the Olympics, I guess. But the only one that could somehow potentially challenge for gold would be Laros for me. But there was an interesting development for me in the sense of I know that Adam Spencer won the Australian trials, and he had the standard, and he's been named to the team. But if the whole point of just having an undemocratic, ridiculous system, like where you can kind of anoint people to the team, why don't the Australians just take Adam Spencer off the Olympic team? Like, he just ran 3:55 today. He was last in this race. Cam Myers, the 17-year-old wonder kid, runs 3:50.16. So, I mean, am I missing something here, John?
Well,
totally
you're just going to
hope they don't do it.
So the guy who's been running really well all year, who flew down from Wisconsin to run the Australian trials and won them, and now he has one. Well, I guess I'm looking at his other races. Goodness, he ran the Pavo Nurmi games June 18th, finished 13th in 3:43. And then the Morton Mile, he was 5th in 3:53, 14th today. So I was going to say you can't take him off based on one bad race, but he's actually hasn't been running very well at all recently. But at the same time, no, he's the Australian champion. I'm sorry. He earned his spot. And I know that trials, they're like, you can't yank him off the team at this point. And he won the Aussie trials. He was really good form. It's just a challenge of Australia that their summer is flipped from the Northern Hemisphere. So a lot of their track season's ending. They have their trials in April. I mean, they want trials, quote unquote, whatever they call the Aussie Championships. In an ideal world, you would have the trials closer to the Olympics, but then you wouldn't really be able to have it in Australia because it's the winter. I don't know how you solve it, but the answer isn't yanking off Adam Spencer from the Olympic team at this point.
The whole point, but the whole point of having people in form and being able to pick the team is to pick the people in form. So it's just a dumb system. I mean, there's got to be a place in Australia that's warm enough to hold the trials now, this time of year in the winter, right? Somewhere they can have a place. Hell,
I agree with you on that. I think they're holding this meet because most events you don't need a trials for. There's only a few events in Australia where they have enough talent to really with 3 people with the standard. So do you hold off and have those events at a later meet and you have the national championships for everyone else earlier? Again, it's not an ideal situation, but
look, Sydney right now, the weather's 65 in the day, 40. I mean, it's good weather, it's decent weather for track. You can hit your distance trials. You could have had it last week. So I really think in the Olympic years, if they're going to have a trials that they wants to have meet, I don't want him kicked off, but his form's not good. So if that's if these, I don't like these systems, but if you're going to have the trials meaning something, you need to have it closer to the Olympics. So if you maybe just for distance, I don't know. Like I would just personally hold the trials in the winter on the Olympic years, get people excited. But hey, I'm not Australian. I can't. So.
Yeah, holding a trial 8 months before the games or whatever it is, 7 months probably. It's just not a good system. You're going to reward someone for what they did 7 months earlier. If that's what you want to do, fine. But there's a chance you don't have the best team, at least in a few events. But they could have a separate meet, Australian Olympic trials meet. But I guess for the sprints, maybe they don't need it, that sort of stuff.
Now, Bruce Bogtrotter on YouTube was sort of saying that Laros needs to learn how not to fall. He's like, yeah, I haven't seen the race. I don't blame him for this. It looks like there was like literally 17 guys converging in one spot. Like, I don't blame anybody for falling. And I think sometimes just bad luck happens. People like, Athing Mo and Morgan Usini, maybe they have issues with their form or something. It could also just be bad luck. But I'm not blaming him for this. And to me, he's still the one wild card that I'm not sure about. When I analyze these races for the gambling markets.
I mean, after that fall, sure, he got up quick, but he only finishes 0.4 behind the winner. That's obviously the impressive performance.
Yeah, I mean, look, we need to mention... Robert says, Ollie Hoare, he's just totally ignoring that Ollie Hoare won the race. I mean, this is Ollie Hoare's first Diamond League victory. Granted, there's no Jakob, there's no Kerr, Nagus or Hawker. You're missing some of the big guns, but I thought he did pretty well. He was challenged in the home straight, and he responded well to Nordas. So I'm going to give him some credit, but I also think Niels Laros, that was the performance of the day for me in this race. But I'm not just going to say, he won this race doesn't mean anything, but I don't think it really changes much in terms of do I view Hoare as his medal chances going up any after this race. Not really. They're about the same.
Right. Correct. They're like less than 1%, I would say.
Oh, come on, Robert.
For a medal?
That's idiotic, yes. Robert. This guy won the Commonwealth Games. Obviously, the third spot, anything can happen. He's the guy in the medal. Niels Laros maybe right now is obviously a better level than him, but he just beat Nordas, who got a medal last year. Would you put Nordas at 1% for a medal last year? He's in the next group. You could even argue maybe, I don't know, is he ahead of Nagus? He's shown how to kick.
No, how could you argue that?
Races. Because he knows how to kick in a championship race.
So does Nagus.
Okay.
How do you do it?
1% is probably 1% is too low based on the way these races are run, because you'll have Kerr and Ingebrigtsen going for gold. You'll have a lot of people running for gold. If they all ran the race and their goal was just to finish top 3, I think his percentages would be certainly less than 5%. I would have Nagus way ahead of him. I would have Hawker way ahead of him. Probably have Laros way ahead of him. So, okay, maybe I'm trying to think. What would the bronze medal odds be? Okay, less than 5% is probably not fair. 1% false. The more I think about it.
Okay, one more comment on this race. Nordas, I don't know how he got a bronze last year. His tactics are just so bad. He's running in lane 3 at one point. I'm like, this isn't that good of a field. What are you doing in lane 3? And maybe he got pushed back in the fall, but I'm just like, he's got a pat, or maybe because he's not that quick at fleet feet, he just has to run more of an even pace, so he's just forced to pass people. But I actually thought this was a decent run because I saw him out in lane 3 at one point on a. He at least was doing it on the backstretch, but it's sort of crazy.
Okay,
He's no
Bruce says
Sinterwitz
it
with the
best here.
tactics.
Let's rank Nordas, Hoare, and Laros 1, 2, 3. For me, it's easy. I got it in my head.
Well, wait, in terms of what? Like, who is the best
Most
chance
likely to
win?
medal in the Olympics.
Okay.
To least likely.
Well, I think number one's obvious for me. It's
Laros.
Laros. And then I'd probably have Nordas second and Hoare third. I just need to remember exactly what Nordas has done before today. But we've seen him mow people down at the end of 1500s. He did it last year. I think that's more suited to winning a medal than Hoare.
Right. It's not fair to Hoare. You're right. I'm probably not giving him enough credit. I had forgotten about the Commonwealth Games for a win but I'm doing the same thing. I'm saying Laros way ahead and then Nordas, Hoare.
Nick Anderson says, how do you guys forget about the Kenyans? I mean, I would give I guess we didn't mention them. I didn't forget about the Kenyans. I'd give Chariot definitely much better chance than Ollie Hoare medaling in Paris. But we didn't mention Hobbs Kessler. I mean, he might be in that mix. He's a 143 guy now. So,
and we haven't mentioned Cole Hawker. There's an interesting thread on Let's Run. It's still quote of the day. This guy did some analysis essentially saying that Cole Hawker may have the best kick in the world. Well, that's a little hard. I think he means in a faster type race because this guy got destroyed at World Indoors. In the kick.
Cole Hawker got destroyed. He got beat by like less than a tenth of a second. He barely got beat.
Crazy kick from a guy who was behind him at the belt by Jordy Beamish. So
right.
I think Jordy Beamish in like a 3:35 race has the best kick in the world. But essentially, he's saying faster than that. We're anywhere in a race where you're close to your PR right now. His kick is the best. And then he also said the final 100 meters at the 2021 USA's, which is what 3:34 race, was amazing. So.
Look, he's
sub 335. He's a factor for sure. And
shout out to Rafael Miranda. Go to the homepage, check out the thread. This guy's done hours of research. He's basically looked up the close, final 300 and final 100 meter splits of every world champion in the modern eras at their world championship gold medal and during their PR. And he says that no one has ever kicked as fast for the final 300 as Cole Hawker in that 330 race. I just think it's going to be a 328 race, and he won't be there, but it did make me think, man, like it's hard to fake numbers. Whatever. And it's super impressive that he has that type of speed. But all these guys are good. It made me go back and watch these videos. It's not like, they were way ahead of fourth place at USA's or, Jakob and these guys are way ahead of fourth place at Worlds. Like everyone's still it's a very competitive field. And the thing, to be honest, I view Kerr as the favorite, but I also don't think necessarily Jakob's been lying about being sick. But I'm just like, okay, so if I don't believe he's sick, if I believe he was sick, then maybe I should think he would have won. But it's like, how many did El Garouche win when he was the favorite? One, right?
Won Olympics.
Yeah.
He won a bunch of worlds as well. 4 worlds, I think.
Okay, one more thing on these 1500s. I want you guys to tell me Niels Laros PR.
In the 1500 meters?
Yes.
331.
Okay, that's a problem.
Yeah, because he fell in Monaco. If he ran that Monaco race, it's probably 329.
I'm just saying, though, he could easily be slotted more in the Cole Hawker. Do we think he's a better kick than Cole Hawker, or he's just younger? Cole Hawker's running 330.5, and the question mark on Cole Hawker is, what about a 328 race? Can he even hang at that pace? Of these guys, Ollie Hoare he's run 329.41. Nordas is 329.47. So Hoare's PR is actually faster than Nordas. So I support the argument that actually I think Laros is a better medal threat because I think we don't know what his upside is. But after, it's 2 heavy favorites, right? Kerr and Ingebrigtsen. And then you got Chariot. Then do you just sort of group the rest of these guys together? All of them?
Basically, but I think there are 2 heavy favorites, but I also think there's going to be one guy will emerge from that. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if it's just the two of them and they break away like they did in Budapest. But going into Budapest, we didn't think Kerr was going to be the guy challenging Ingebrigtsen. And going into Worlds in 2022, we didn't think Whiteman was going to be the guy challenging. There's always one guy who kind of emerges and is like, oh, I've timed things perfectly. I'm in shape to do it. So I think there's going to be one of that group who might be able to hang with them in a fast race. I think Hawker might be the most likely to do it, honestly.
But can we remind ourselves? I mean, someone talked about the Kenyans. Timothy Chariot, who's run 3:28 this year, was only third of the trials. Reynold Chariot won it. Daniel Mungudu, who I've never heard of, was second. So, I still can't believe Mungudu got second. Like, he's on the team, right? Because he was second. So
no, I don't think so. I don't think he has the points. So, because I just looked at the entries, they've got Abel Kipsang, Brian Coleman, Timothy Chariot, and Reynold Chariot as their Olympic entries. So, I'm assuming if they're honoring the order of the trials, it's going to be Reynold Chariot, Timothy Chariot, and Brian Coleman. So I didn't realize Brian Coleman had been running very well up until this point. Remember, he won a Diamond League. He got beat at the trials, was only fifth, but he ran well in Monaco as well. He was third behind Chariot. He's going to be a factor in this race also.
Well, that's big because Coleman's in despite finishing fifth. I was like, the guy finished fifth at the Kenyan trials. It just ran 3:29 or whatever it was. And then let's don't sleep. We're talking about teen phenoms, right? Laros is how old now, John?
19.
Well, did we realize that the winner of the Kenyan trials is also 19?
Reynold Chariot. I mean,
yeah,
he's a former world junior champion, and we've talked about his potential, for a while.
He turns 20 in 9 days, and this guy ran 3:48 at pre, was only sixth, but he was second in that LA meet. He's definitely a guy that could do it. And I'm looking this up. This is just fascinating. This Daniel Mungutu guy somehow got second at the Kenyan trials. 29-year-old journeyman. John doesn't even think he had the standard. That's why he couldn't go. Maybe he wasn't in the testing pool. He went to Bidgosh after the trials and ran 3:38. So it's just, wild.
Maybe he's a good altitude runner.
I think that's, it's going to be, look, we can break this down more because a professional gambler is paying John and I $500 each to come up with the odds for every Olympic event. And it's kind of, I started and I kind of waited for this meet, John, because I'm like, this is going to impact the sprints a lot. So we're going to talk about the sprints in a minute, but it's kind of interesting when you actually have the real, we can talk about this hypothetically, but when you have a spreadsheet in front of you and you need to make it add up to 100. So you say, okay, Robert Johnson has a 60% chance. Jonathan Gold has 30. That only leaves 10% for everybody else. So it's a very good mental thought process to do it. And you got to figure out all the guys. So it's kind of, I think I tend to overestimate, I think we tend to overestimate the odds sometimes, thinking that there's a small percentage chance that these tiny people could get it and that adds up. If there's 5 people with 2%, that's 10%. So, all right, let's talk about the sprints here. The sprinting action.
One more thing. Niels Laros, the people don't know, watching on YouTube. He grew up driving around Europe, the back of a car, listening to the Let'sRun.com podcast. His parents showed up at the Let's Run meetup. If you want that success for your children, you need to join the Supporters Club. Scan the QR code or go to Let'sRun.com/subscribe. And then email us, podcast@Let'sRun.com. Who will win the men's 1,500 meters? You get it right, we'll give you your first year free.
Right. If you showed up to the Let'sRun.com meetup at the 2023 Worlds, you probably met Mr. Niels Laros' parents because they were among the first people there. So and we've got to meet up in Paris. We've set the date. I believe it's August 6th. It's the day of the 1,500 meter final. We're still looking for a venue, but there will be a Let's Run meetup for Supporters Club members if you are lucky enough to be in Paris for the Olympics.
Before the 1,500 final, we're doing it the 5 p.m. or something. Whatever. I don't know what time the meet starts, but so anyone in Paris know a good place for a meetup, maybe near the stadium. I'm not sure that's the nicest part of town, but email us podcast@letsrun.com.
All right, let's talk about the 100 here. It's the marquee event of track and field, and we had the reigning world champion in this race, Noah Lyles. I thought he looked great. if you're Noah Lyles, this is exactly what you want going into the Olympic Games. He got a decent enough start. His close was on point as usual. He runs a PB of 9.81 into a headwind, only a slight one. It's 0.3, so basically still conditions, but still, that's a personal best. He smoked Tebogo. Tebogo tied his personal best, 988. He was only third. Akane Simbine was second, 986. Just a great run for Noah Lyles. And look, he's not going to go in as the world leader. That's Kashane Thompson. And I think Kashane Thompson has the ceiling. I think his ceiling's higher than Lyles, but I trust Noah Lyles is going to run very close to 9.80 in the Olympic final. And the question to me is someone like Thompson going to be able to bust a big one and run 9.7? Or, is it the consistency of Lyles that wins out? And I think it's very hard to pick between them right now because Thompson has the ceiling, but he's never run a global championship. Lyles has run plenty of global championships and is usually very consistent. So how do you guys see this event at the moment?
I think Thompson's the favorite, as you said, but that's sort of crazy to think. But Noah Lyles is getting better. And this is the PB into the wind. We need to factor in the wind here. Someone go to the calculator. This was a really good run. I mean, the crazy thing for me is Tebogo, who silver at Worlds last year, correct? He set a PB today, or tied his PB. And he got smoked. He wasn't even a factor. So very good run for Noah. We'll put this into the sprint calculator here in a second, see what it converts to.
You do the Lyles one. I'll do Kashane Thompson's 977 from the Jamaican trials.
Okay, let's do that.
While people are talking about that, Daniel Black, I famously predicted that after Noah Lyles failed to win gold in 2021, I'm like, look, this guy was hyped. It kind of annoys me how NBC just hypes someone as a star before they're actually a star. And he was sort of hyped as the apparent to Usain Bolt, and then he didn't win a gold. I'm like, I think these other guys, Tebogo, Knighton, are going to take the golds in 2024. I think he's screwed. But I didn't realize that sort of the 2021 Lyles was an aberration. I think he was on the antidepressants, not running well. And he's back at a better level. Certainly looks like he's going to win gold. This race itself didn't totally panic me. That he's a lock. Look, I kind of, in the last couple weeks after the Jamaican trials, I was like, okay, I was feeling better about the 100. I'm like, okay, I don't think he's going to win the 100. After today's run, I'm like, okay, Noah could still pull off the double. He could definitely win the 100. I mean, 91 into a headwind? What does that equal to, guys?
979.
And Thompson's time of 9.77 with a 0.9 meter tailwind, that's a 9.81 according to the sprint calculators. So this race is actually, according to the sprint conversion calculators, more impressive than Thompson's world leader at the Jamaican trials.
It's on, baby. It's on. That's what we want, right? We want an epic matchup. And even going back to the U.S. Olympic trials, the highest rated night of the trials, I'm pretty sure, was the night of the men's 100-meter final. That's what people want to see.
Yeah, it's Jamaica versus America. It's great. You've got Noah Lyles, who's trying to be the heir to Bolt here, and you've got the new Jamaican phenom trying to win it back after Italy came in and scooped the gold in Tokyo. So it's a great storyline. You've got two huge talents, and it's going to be a fantastic race. The rounds are going to be very interesting because the one other thing, I mean, I don't think we've seen the best of Kashane Thompson. Remember that the 9.77, that was his season opening meet. He shows up, he had one DNF in May, and then he goes 982, 984, 977 in the span of about 26 hours in Kingston. So I think his ceiling is higher than Lyles, but can he reach it when the spotlight's on?
And one thing though that I've heard, Justin Gatlin, friend of the pod, has a podcast. He's going to be a friend of the pod. I like Justin's podcast. I think he's a great announcer. Anyway, one thing they talk about is going to Europe, the travel, the jet lag. Now, obviously for the Olympics, the jet lag's gone away, but they're it's very different when you're sort of traveling around, competing overseas for the first time. That's the one thing because Shane Thompson's never done. We know Noah Lyles handles this like the back of his hand. Except someone here's got a comment, JW. Noah Lyles better not choke in Paris. Noah Lyles, I've never seen him choke. I've seen him lose 200 meters ever in his life. One, there's a perfect explanation. He had depression, all that other stuff at Paris. I don't think it was a testament of him. He wasn't great all season. Of him choking at the Olympics.
Wait a second. He wasn't in the right headspace going into Tokyo. He'd been taking the antidepressants, but he did show up to the pre-classic a couple weeks later and run 19:52. So I don't think it's entirely fair to call it a choke, but he ran an amazing time like right after the Olympics. So, something wasn't right, but I don't think it was entirely not a choke.
See, that's why we need John. We build up a narrative, right? And we buy into people's narrative. Noah presents their narrative like, oh, I wasn't 100%. Depression. Of course, those things were there, but you're pointing out like, hey, dude, like right after the Olympics, I'm going to pull up the dates on that. That's crazy, actually.
Yeah, the Olympic final was August 4th. He ran 19.74. And then August 21st, so 17 days later, he runs 19.52. Now, DeGrasse was terrific in Tokyo. Like, this is why I'm not saying this was like some massive choke job by Noah Lyles, but it's worth pointing out he did run 19.52. Granted, there was a win disparity too there. 19.74 with into a minus 0.5, then 19.52 with a plus 0.15. So fairly similar performances, I'd say.
Well, for the record, because Shane Thompson has gone to Europe after the Jamaican trials, he ran in, I think it's Poland, July 9th, 991 into a headwind of 0.6. Marcell Jacobs, the defending champion, he showed really good form at Europeans. Well, he won that in 10:02, and then he went to Turku a week later, ran 992, which made me think, okay, can he get back to 980? Now, then he didn't race for basically a month. He did race in Rieti a week ago. Did 3 races over 2 days, 10:17, 10:16, and 10:08. So I don't know if he was just trying to replicate the rounds. That's not super fast, but he's a big meet performer. So it's not a choke to me if Lyles loses the 100. It is a choke if he loses the 200. When I handicap the 200, I do think there's a chance he loses, but I think the most likely chance is that he's sort of off his game or injured from the 100 or something like that and then gets beat. Probably in that case, Big Narek beats him. If somebody like just absolutely is better than Noah Lyles, I think the only one capable of doing that in the 200 would be most likely Arian Knighton, who didn't look amazing to me last night. He had a terrible start in the Atlanta Track League. He run 19.
I think it was 1998, right?
Yeah. Bad start, but 1998. I mean, you got to run a lot faster than that. And Tebogo today,
1992.
Again, he equals his PB, and I thought he had a wonderful start, but just Lyles was clearly better than him the last 40 meters. So, anyways, all right. Other sprint action. We had a really interesting. Well, I guess let's quickly go through these. 400 hurdles. Femke Bol ran 51.3. The good news is that's the third fastest women's 400 hurdles ever. The bad news is I think the three of us are in agreement, much more so than most people. People keep trying to hyping this up as a big rivalry with Sydney. I just don't see that. Sydney's 0.65 of a second faster. Sydney has PR'd at every global final she's ever run. Like, I know it's the hurdles, so there's a little bit of a wild card there. But, like, would you expect, if you knew the two people are in great form, which we know that they both are in, would you expect a 44 flat 400 runner to lose to a 44.6? No. It's almost 3/4 of a second. But good run for her non-altitude PB. Dos Santos won the men's 400 47.18, which isn't great for him, but it's not terrible. But we talked about it earlier, like NCAA and Jamaican champ Nikisha Price, 48.57. That's the new world lead. We've had 3 straight former NCAA athletes win the 400 meter gold. Are we going to have 4? We had help me out, John, the American.
What do you mean 3 straight 400 meter NCAA athletes? The women's 400 at a global championship, off an NCAA. I don't understand what you're talking about.
We had Shiner Richards Ross win in 2012, and then we had Shiny Miller Weibo win in 2016 and 2021. It looks like that we could have a fourth straight.
Okay, so they just
NCAA
ran. They ran in the NCAAs at some point. I guess that happens for a lot of the sprints, but yes, technically that's true. It's very interesting though, comparing Nikisha Price to Christopher Morales-Williams, because the men's NCAA champion, the guy who set the world indoor record unofficially in the 400 meters early this year, he was also in this meet, and he just looks. I mean, he ran 44.9. That's not terrible, but it's not the form he was in a couple months ago. And he was pretty open at NCAA. It's been a long season. He's been racing a lot. He gets tired. That stuff happens. So that's kind of what I was expecting would happen to Keisha Price. She ran the Jamaican champs. She only ran like 50 points something there, though she did win. I'm like, all right. I probably wouldn't have had her as the Olympic favorite going into this race just because she's probably, I would assume she'd be slowing down at the NCAA season. She goes in the opposite direction. She ran 48.89 in NCAAs. Now she goes 48.57 to win this meet. So that 48.89 was an NCAA record. And now she's breaking her own personal record, her own Jamaican record. She beat Kazmarek. Like Kazmarek and Claver, who are two of the best in the world. Kazmarek medaled last year. They both PB'd, and they still both got beat. So I think, 48.5. I mean, that's just damn fast. I think you have to be the Olympic favorite now, right?
Yeah, and
no, because she doesn't have the experience, but I'm not sure who's going to beat her.
Paulino, maybe? I mean, do you think Paulino can get to... I mean, if she runs 48.5 in Paris, I don't think she's losing. The question is, can she do that, 3 rounds? But we're only 2 weeks away. Like, the concern for me with these NCAA studs is, are they still in the same sort of shape when they won the NCAAs? That's not a concern for me anymore. So I think just how fast does Paulino run this year?
Well, Paulino is undefeated on the year. She's run 49.20. She's run 49.3 and 49.2 in her last 2 races, winning in Oslo and then Paris. Now, but that being said, Paulino's PB, but she ran, she does have a good history of peaking at the big meets because her PRs have come. She's run a national record near the end of each of the last 3 seasons. She ran 49.2 in Tokyo for silver. She ran 48.99 in Zurich at the end of 2022, September 8th, and then she ran 48.76 last year to win gold in Budapest. So her PB, though, is slower than what was run today. So it's going to, I think Paulino, like, the way I always analyze the 400, it's like, it's kind of sometimes it seems like it's almost a random event, and it's like whoever's in form right at the time of the championship. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we've seen Michael Norman in the past open up fast, and he's not ready to go. So I was thinking like, okay, this is good for her. And then on the men's side, coming into this, I was like, well, who's my Olympic favorite? And I was kind of thinking, okay, I guess I need to go with Quincy Hall. He just ran 43.8 in Monaco. Christopher Morales-Williams is not in good form, so he's more than a quarter second up of Matthew Hudson-Smith of Great Britain, but not anymore because Matthew Hudson-Smith was just amazing today. The first British guy under 44. And what was the actual time again? I've already forgotten it.
43.74, and he's gotten faster every time out this year. So I guess he had listed a DNF in his first 400 of the year. I'm not sure what to make of that, but he opened up in 45 flat on April 20th. Then he goes 44.69 in Jamaica on May 11th, 44.07 to win in Oslo on May 30th. I believe that was a PB before today. And then 43.74 European record to win in London. So he's peaking at the right time. This guy's medaled the last 2 championships. I think him and Hull, those are if you're going to debate who's the favorite, it's going to be one of those 2 guys because Hull ran almost the same time last week in Monaco as this. They both medaled at at Worlds last year. And Antonio Watson, who's the defending world champion, isn't even running the Olympics. So I think it's probably going to be one of those 2 guys. I think I probably like is it bad for me to just say I like Hudson-Smith's chances more because he just looks his form's a bit more put together? Like, it's crazy to me that Quincy Hall, with how wild his form is in the home straight, he's still running that fast. His arms are all over the place, but he's still just an incredible, obviously he gets his results. He's a warrior in that last 100. But it's going to be a battle. America versus UK. Good old 1776 Redux.
Pat Smith on YouTube disagrees, John. He says Quincy Hall still looked a lot smoother in his 43 this year.
Okay, smoother compared to what? He doesn't look smooth.
I didn't think that this Hudson-Smith guy, he's got some barrel chest. I don't think he looks super smooth. But hey, we saw Michael Johnson. People thought he had bad form, and he was one of the greats of all time. Does this make us think that, we all have been critical of Sydney McLaughlin or Voney for not doubling? But, she ran 48.74 last year, 48.75. But that wasn't at Worlds. So I don't think it would be a given that she would win the 400. I still think she would because I think she could run 48 low. But it's not like it's a walk in the park for her to win.
That's why it's fun. That's because we don't know the 400 hurdles. I think she's an overwhelming favorite, as good as Bowl is, and Bowl's the second fastest ever, and Sydney's just on even another level. The 400 she could be challenged. I mean, she might just go out and boss everyone because she's that talented, but it's hard. We want to see her do it because it's hard, Robert. Not because if it was just an easy double for her, it wouldn't be interesting.
I think I take back what I said. Nikisha Price is your 400-meter Olympic favorite. And the number 2 person at the Olympics got smoked in this race. Now, maybe Polino, she hasn't done the experience, but I think going through the rounds of NCAAs, I guess we saw it change really quick, right, for her Arkansas teammates who sort of really didn't show up at USA's. But it's crazy. And on the men's side, I was sort of surprised that Matthew Hudson-Smith was the Olympic favorite before this run. You guys don't want me talking about Olympic odds until you see it, but after this run, impressive. People are saying, oh, Michael Norman, watch out, Michael Norman will win it. Are you guys surprised at all that Michael Norman hasn't raced since the trials?
No, because going into the trials, he was saying he wasn't totally healthy. He'd been dealing with some injury stuff, and it kind of showed at the trials. Like he's an injury prone guy. He's been working through something for most of his professional career, and we know how good he can be when he gets things together. But if he was banged up at the trials, it doesn't shock me that he wouldn't race between now and the Olympics, because the goal is to make sure you're as healthy as possible at the Olympics. But because of that, I like Hull and Hudson-Smith's odds better because I just think they're healthy, and I'm not sure about Norman.
All right, speaking of 400, have you guys seen this? There's a dig here. Noah Lyles is taking a shot at Quincy Hall. So this is an article from USA Today from yesterday that Steve found. Noah Lyles appeared on the Track World News podcast. Have you all ever heard of that? I have not. And they said, name your US 4x400 team. He, of course, put himself on it, which is totally absurd. With fellow Olympians Chris Bailey. What has Chris Bailey done this year, John?
Well, he made the team.
Michael Norman and Ry Benjamin. He left off the world leader and U.S. champion Quincy Hall. And then he tried to justify it by saying, the only reason I wouldn't use the current U.S. champion is because I don't think he would be a starter. I feel like using him on the first leg would be almost like a waste of his talent. I just don't see him getting his full capability out of the first leg. Okay, Noah, then why wouldn't you run him on the anchor leg, considering he's the fastest guy in the world this year? I'm assuming he thinks that, Ry Benjamin needs to be on the anchor? The obvious answer is you kick Michael Norman off the team. I mean, first of all,
wait. Let's cut the bullshit. I make you the Olympic coach in the final, and everyone's injured. We got 3 guys left. I don't know who we have. I'm saying Quincy's on the team, whatever. And it comes down to Quincy Wilson or Noah Lyles right now. Who do you put on the team?
Quincy Wilson. That's not even a question. Quincy Wilson just ran 44.2. He's number 6 in the world this year. When has Noah Lyles ever showed something like that in a 400? I trust Quincy Wilson more in a 4x4 than I do Lyles.
Correct.
I agree. I think you'd have to with the stats. I see how some coaches say, Noah Lyles will figure out a way to do it. He'll run for sure at least 45 flat or something. But
45 flat doesn't do anything, Weldon. College teams run that. On a running start, that's like a 46. It's terrible. So in case you guys missed it, the Supporters Club members, Quincy Hall, the 16-year-old, is just getting better and better. He ran 44.20 last night. And this is how good the U.S. is. He was 6th at USA's. He barely beat the 5th place at USA's. They run like 44.2 and 44.23 or something like that. And he's pumped. He's like, I want to run the relay. So, I mean, I'm certain they'll run him on some sort of, at least the mixed gender relay or the first round of the 4x4. But this might get him in the final, which is great. And I do think there's a showmanship aspect of this. TV ratings, fame, does that play into it? Well, the good news is we've seen the traffic. Like we've talked to our relatives when they've been talking to us about the Olympic trials, random people, all of them have mentioned to us Quincy Hall. So
Quincy Wilson.
So put him on the team. If you were debating, okay, which person who may not deserve it but needs to go on there for PR reasons, who am I going to put on? I would put Quincy Wilson on because he's run 44.2. He's now the 6th fastest man on planet Earth for 2024, where Noah Lyles just talks a big game. Like, if Noah Lyles wanted to run the relay, we said it after World Indoors, he needs to run a 400 somewhere, and he hasn't done it. So that ship has sailed. Unless he wants to run the, hey, Noah, I'll let you do this. You can run the mixed gender 4x4. Actually, he can't do that because it interacts with the 100. So,
yeah,
no.
I'm sorry. I think Noah Lyles, I love his ambition. And no, they're not talking about putting him on the team at all. Like, I don't even think he's being considered. He hasn't run a 400 this year. How can you put him? I guess he ran the one at World Indoors, but he's not going to be put on the Olympic team. It's just out of the equation. I think this is sort of a hypothetical. I see why Quincy Hall is upset, but at the same time, like, you're talking to someone, who are you going to put on the team? Of course he's going to put himself on the team. He thinks he should be on the team. And then it's a matter of question of who you leave off. I don't leave off Quincy Hall. I think it's sort of insulting. I don't know. I would leave off Ry Benjamin for sure. Before those guys.
No. Ry Benjamin's been a very reliable anchor for this team at the Worlds. To me, the two locks on the team are Benjamin and Hull. And then everything else after that, I think you probably go, you look at how the individual 400 plays out, and you either go Bailey Norman or maybe Quincy Hall comes in and takes one of those spots if one of those guys bombs out. But Benjamin and Hall are the two for sure.
Look, it's not that hard. You got to see how the individual goes. You got to see who's not injured. But the good news is we have Quincy Hall fresh, excited to run this. So I would put him on everything. Put him on mixed. Quincy Wilson. I put him on mixed gender. Let him run the prelims and the final. Hell, let him anchor it. But I don't think I ever mentioned Quincy Hall's comments. He responded to Noah Lyles by saying, I don't bother nobody, but my blocks are ready anytime you feel like you can beat me in the 400. You was talking too much on my name on your little podcast. I don't do the little slick comments and remarks. I line up. It was hard to read that because some of the language wasn't proper, and then the punctuation on this USA Today article was terrible. But I love that. I will right now organize a $10,000 match race between Noah Lyles and Quincy Hall anytime they want to do it, as long as I get the broadcast rights.
10,000. That's gonna get them, Robert. There it is, folks. That's what we'll do, right? When they're having the
$100,000.
It's called the Gabby Thomas track meet, essentially the all women's track meet. We'll just settle blood feuds on the men's side. We'll have Quincy Hall go against Noah Lyles. And what else can we do?
I mean, Jakob versus Kerr. That's really going to happen
at 100. Jakob versus Kerr at 100. And then you have to like brawl, and there's like fist fights afterwards, boxing and shit. Like, this will get better ratings.
Also, we should note that Vernon Norwood, who is in the US relay pool, ran a PB of 44.10 for second today. He actually pushed Quincy Wilson down. Quincy Wilson was number 6 in the world last night. He's now number 8 in the world because Norman and I believe Dream Richards also pushed him down. So Vernon Norwood needs to be considered in that relay pool as well.
So, and that's the thing. I think ultimately they're not going to put a high school kid. The high school kid will not be running the final.
No, I'll tell you. Here's the one. I think the one way we would see him run the final is if Quincy Wilson runs the mixed gender 4x4, which I think he probably should. If he runs an unbelievable split in the final of the mixed gender 4x4, there'll be a push to put him in the regular 4x4.
But also, like, who are we going to put on the mixed gender team? Like, I want an A team out there. I guess you guys running the 400, so that's a problem. They want to stay fresh, but like these guys should go for a gold medal. Quincy Hall, he may be a household name, an Olympic gold medalist 3 weeks from now, but he also, I mean, he'll probably get one on the 4x4 almost no matter what. That's the advantage of living in the United States, but I don't know. I think as many gold medals as possible. Why wouldn't you run the mixed?
Because you think you've got a great shot in the individual 400, and the US is almost certainly going to, well, they almost always win the regular 4x4 as well. So if you're Quincy Hall, I can understand passing up that mixed race. Put Quincy Wilson and Vernon Norwood on that mixed 4x4, and you're going to have two fantastic legs right there. And then you need a couple of women to round it out. Okay, we spent a ridiculous amount of time talking about the 400. This is probably a record for most 400 discussion. Let's talk about this 200. This women's 200 was unlike any 200 I've ever seen. It was very weird. Gabby Thomas, we already talked about it before, ran a horrific bend. I was like, this is the Olympic favorite, and she's going to get blown out in the last meet before the Olympics? What is happening right now? And Dina Asher-Smith ran a tremendous bend. She gets run down. And then it's Gabby Thomas and Julian Alfred. Thomas passes Asher-Smith. Then you're like, can she get Alfred by the finish line? She did. I've never seen someone make up that much of a gap in an Elite 200. I think Thomas was like fourth coming off the curve. And she came back on someone like this was a 1500. It was insane. She runs 21.82 into a 0.9 headwind. So it's actually a great performance considering her season's best was 21.78. So the more I look at this, I'm like, this wasn't Thomas. I mean, she didn't run a good ton, but this wasn't Thomas running bad. This was Julian Alfred really raised her game. But the Olympic 200, the women's race just got a lot more interesting because I went in this thinking, all right, Thomas is the clear favorite because Shericka Jackson hasn't been on her game. Julian Alfred's more of a threat in the 100 than the 200. Now, Julian Alfred pushed her all the way to the line. She's got to be thinking, I might be able to win the 200. But a great job by Gary Thomas, to battle back and win this because that was a really impressive comeback.
I agree with most of the analysis, but I think Thomas should feel pretty good about this, John. She had a terrible beginning to this race and still won. And she almost equaled her seasonal best. And she seems to be the type of woman that really, when she's training through, she's not great. And then when she tapers down,
yeah,
she seems
her championship record shows that because she's medaled in the last two global championships and the US championships. She usually runs her fastest time of the year. So I trust her to get her peak right for Paris. She's still the favorite, but Julian Alfred going into this, I guess her PB was 21.91. So it's not like she was, this was a huge PB, but still 21.86 into a big headwind. That's a great run for her.
I say that about Thomas. She ran 21.6 at USA's and then 21.8 at Worlds. And actually in 2021, she did the same thing. She ran 21.6 at USA's and then 21.8 in Tokyo. So is she past her peak? I think we falsely were praising her ability to peak, John.
Well, no, Eugene's a really fast track. I mean, she might have just got great conditions in this race, and she still, those two races, Tokyo, she beat everyone except for Elaine Thompson-Herah and Christine Mboma, who's now banned DSD. Or I guess she's competing, but she's lowered her levels, whatever. She was competing with an advantage. And the last World Championships, she beat everyone except for Shericka Jackson, who ran one of the fastest times ever. So, okay, she didn't run 21.6, but it's hard to run 21.6 a bunch of times. She still peaked pretty well.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. But, guys, you're going to have to enjoy it without me for the second straight Olympics. My disorganization has cost me. My Olympic press pass has been sent to the wrong address. I think 3 years ago I had lost my passport. No, I've been told, John, that they're good. They've got me handled. The Olympics cannot go on without me.
It always
happy to
works
give
out
me
for
a-
Rojo. Yeah, 3 years ago, I'm handling all that stuff. Like I spent an entire day, one of the off days at the Olympic trials, getting all the paperwork in order because there was an enormous amount to get everything, all the COVID stuff and the protocols. You had to file itineraries. Like it was a huge pain in the ass. And I'm sending off to Robert, hey, you need to send me like a screenshot of your passport for this thing. He just sends me some picture. I'm like, Robert, this passport expired like 2 years ago. What are you doing? And then that's what cues him to realize he's lost his passport and he needs a replacement one. But it all works out in the end. I can't remember you ever missing a meet because of something like this. Eventually it works out. So I'm very confident you'll be in Paris. We'll be having a great time and probably not sleeping very much. But I can't. We're less than 2 weeks away. I can't wait. This is going to be fantastic. What a great city to host the Olympics. And it's Europe, so you're going to have a lot of fans. I hope they didn't get priced out that much. The tickets sound like they're outrageously expensive, but I hope you got some track diehards were able to get some early or something. It's just gonna be such a great venue, such a great meet.
Somebody asked if Jonathan Gault was in Rio. Or is this his first Rio Olympics, meeting fans? John was in Rio. I was there with him. I almost missed that one too, John. Remember, I showed up at the airport. I don't know, should I piss on an airline here? You could probably figure out which one it is. From my hometown of Dallas, I generally love this airline. And they're like, I put the passport to the scanner? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, type in the number. They're like, no, we're not going to do that. You could be rejected in Brazil. And I'm like, what? And they're like, if it did, and they didn't even try to scan it. It was just crazy. They're like, you need to go to the passport office. And I had like this huge layover on my second flight because I was flying to New York so I could get on the plane with John. They're like, you have 3 hours. Go to the passport office in Dallas right now. Get a new passport. Somehow I listened to the lady and tried to do this. This is idiotic. Robert calls. He's like, you don't have time. I got you another flight out of the other airport. Get on it. You go to New York. Get some super glue and tape. I super glue the back of it together. No problem. I fly to New York. Have to switch airports. The cabbie's like busting through the breakdown lane with rush hour traffic. I get there. They're like, sorry, you're inside of the hour. I'm like, I don't have a check bag. I got it. She's like, okay, we'll put you through. I don't say anything about the passport. She just scans it, no problem. I'm like, oh my God, this is all it took.
Oh, I didn't even remember any of that because I just show up in New York.
I don't remember any of that
either.
either.
Yeah,
waiting for the
I almost
layover.
died. The cabbie got me between LaGuardia and JFK in like 20 minutes with completely stopped traffic. The breakdown lane, he'd gun it in the breakdown lane to the bridges, and the bridges don't cover the breakdown lane, and then he'd just honk his horn and get back over and keep going.
Well, I don't
That's like a
understand. So
miracle.
what were you switching? Did the airport driving have anything to do with your passport?
Yes, originally I was just flying into JFK, but you'd found me a Southwest flight. We're like, well, then you don't have time to get the passport, and you're not going to make that flight. I got to get you on this other flight. I just sort of listened. They're like, you're not getting on the plane with the passport, so I figured the passport.
Where did the
was
flight go
first thing.
to? I did this?
Yes, you booked the Southwest flight for me
To where?
from Dallas to New York. I was going Dallas to New York to Paris because I wanted to be in John's plane
To Rio.
to Rio. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's
Which is
the one.
crazy.
The one
Never
thing I
again.
noticed. I missed you guys. I listened to some of the podcasts. I didn't listen to the Friday 15, but I did listen to 2 regular podcasts. You just have a habit sometimes of saying the wrong city. Like Robert, you was talking about Paris, and he just says Tokyo, and it's like, dude, it's 3 years ago. It's 2024. Let's go. And I did remember the one trip that Robert did miss due to his, lack of paperwork or whatever was 2018 NCAA cross country in Madison. That was the only one I can remember you missing out on.
Hey, I've got John. This is good news for me then. Because do you think that Democrats? I'm your man. I'm a registered Democrat.
You're a registered Democrat. You.
Yes, always. And I will be a good transition. Like Kamala's not popular, so it'll be me. Like I'm
Kamala.
I'm starting to gray, and I will occasionally slip up a word. I'll purposely mess up a city. Like I'll say Tokyo instead of Paris, but I'll seem more competent than Joe. And I've got the Southern roots.
Okay, and also wait, can we mark this podcast so like 30 years from now when you guys are trying to drag me off the Let's Run podcast saying I'm like Joe Biden? Well, I'll be like, no, I had flubs back in the day, man. That's what Biden says now too. So
Seriously, do y'all think? I think I could beat Donald Trump if they nominated me.
Well, it's not
You
going to
think
happen.
you could
All
beat
do
Donald
so you don't
Trump?
have to worry about it.
I would run as a Democrat. I'm just gonna say I'm gonna shut the border, and then people okay.
This is
Be
once
easy.
another example of Robert just overestimating basically how easy anything is, and all his $1 million
All
ideas that
talk,
never
right?
made
All
it
his
off the
great
ground.
ideas.
Yeah.
Now he's going to be president of the United States.
Robert, head off to
I'm-
the conventions. What is it next week? Go out there and hit it up before you leave for Paris.
We have a sunset tour meet tonight. Are there any other meets?
No, I think that's going to be the last one, right? Safana San's entered.
Twice.
Nikki
I think it's
Hiltz
an
is
important meet
entered.
because of that.
Caitlin Tui's running, I think. Yeah, I think that's the last one, and then next week's just going to be sort of the big deep breath, and everyone waits.
All right, guys, let's go.
Just checking here the calendar to make sure, John. The Estonian 10,000 meter championships are next weekend.
People are saying they're out because of politics, but our numbers are twice what they were when we started. When the numbers go up, I have an internal dashboard that adds up Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram.
Yeah.
Then it's a vanity thing. I'm like, oh, they're still up there. Hundreds are listening. I got to keep talking.
I just put a splash page on the homepage. So that's what happened.
Oh, well.
Yeah, then they're not listening because we suddenly transition to politics. I don't want to talk about politics. It's annoying. So anyway, yeah, that's going to do it for the Friday 15 special live edition, which Robert says will be deleted from the internet in a matter of hours. So thanks everyone for tuning in. It was great to be back talking track with the Brojos. Missed you guys on my break, but it was also a necessary break. It was kind of a grind of a season to this point. Fired up, ready for Paris, and we'll see you on the regular podcast next week. Oh, wow. Weldon showing his journalist chops. Hashtag I stand with Evan. Wow. Yeah.
Okay. Wait. Can I talk about this? We're talking about this Wall Street Journal reporter who's been in prison in Russia. I have a question about this, and I almost put this on the Wall Street Journal comments, but now I guess I'm like, I don't want my name on it. Now I'm broadcasting on a podcast. The Wall Street Journal article is like, he's been falsely imprisoned, and they state it like a fact. I'm very skeptical of the media, even though I guess I'm a member of the media. Like, what do you mean? He's been falsely imprisoned. According to you, he's been falsely imprisoned. According to Russia, he's a spy. And I think I've always thought the whole time, what are the odds that this guy's actually a spy? Is that a crazy question? Like, how can the Wall Street Journal emphatically say falsely imprisoned, like falsely convicted? How do they know that? They don't know that.
I think the UN and a bunch of other people have said that they think this is a false imprisonment. I think there's a way to state that. I agree. You shouldn't just. I think for certain things, the media, like people don't like talking about Trump. They start doing this with Trump. Certain things like false claims of this. I think you should always sort of cite your source or why these things are like widely disproven by these sources or something like that. Because yeah, you don't want to. There's two sides. Obviously, the Russian side, which I disagree with, but I haven't studied this enough. But I've seen enough people who I trust. But I guess you could say, oh, the consensus was wrong on COVID. They could be wrong on these things. But I think the bulk of the evidence out there, I've yet to see any person from the West. Well, I guess you could say, oh, the Russians say, oh, you're biased from the West, saying that he did anything that deserves to be in prison for 10 to 15 years. I mean, they're
Cool.
trying to get leverage for a prisoner swap. I think that's.
Where'd you get this shirt?
I went to the run at the Wall Street Journal. I guess celebrating the annual. There was an annual, not celebrating, making, bringing attention to his 1 year in detention. They had a run in New York City because I guess he was a big runner. So, but yeah, I think they should. It probably does make sense to lay out like what he's been accused of or something like that instead of just taking it for granted. But I didn't. Even when I put something up on Let's Run about it, because I was like, well, I don't know. I forgot I forgot how I phrased it.
If somebody was a spy,
I was
would the
aware of
U.S.
that,
admit
like
it?
you, Robert. Like you can't just. You should, back up what you say.
If the U.S. was a spy, would they admit it? Have they ever admitted? Yeah, but you got one. You got one of our guys.
Well, then I think you could present strong evidence of what he was doing that showed that he was spying. So that hasn't seemed to be done. These trials don't seem to. They're being held in. I guess you could say it's spying stuff. Maybe we want to keep it in confidence. but like I haven't seen any transparency at all. He hasn't been allowed to like meet with. I don't know. I don't know all the details, but I think personally, yes, free. I stand with Evan. But yeah, people should ask that question, Robert. That's a good question. Let's get the evidence out there. Let's get it out there. Like, oh, we need to wear masks for COVID. Okay, what's the evidence?
The Rojo and Brojo Politics Show will be starting next week without Jonathan Galt. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.